Hi, this is Chukudum from Doseo Farms. Today we're going to be talking about heating and ventilation. As you know, in life, the most important thing is the quality of your air. Next to that is the quality of your water, and then you talk about other things. Today we're going to be talking about the quality of your air. How do you manage your heating and ventilation? As you know, in the natural, the mothers of your day-old chicks take care of their chicks. If there is cold, the chicks gather under them and their mothers provide the warmth. In commercial farming, we have taken away that role that the mother plays. We have now become the mother of these birds. So heating and ventilation is the study of how do you provide care that's appropriate for these birds. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The first thing I have to say is that most farmers do not get this right because most farmers don't have the tools. I've heard people say to farmers, give them heat, give them heat, give them more heat. Whenever a farmer will complain about a problem, they say, hey, just give them more heat. No, you have to give them appropriate heat. And what is appropriate heat depends on the age of the bird. So if the bird is first 7 days, or actually the first 3 days is one temperature, and the temperature goes down from every 3 days, it goes down slightly. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Why is it important? Well, we want to manage the heating and ventilation because we don't want rapid changes in heating and ventilation. We want to maintain a certain level of heating and ventilation so the birds are comfortable. You don't want them hot 1 minute and very cold the next minute. So that's why it's important to know how to do this. And now we also have to adjust for too high and too low humidity. So those are two things because as you may know, the temperature and the humidity go hand in hand. There's not much you can do about humidity, but there are ways to adjust the heat based on the humidity. The other thing I have to say is that whatever you do with heating and ventilation, you must make adjustments for fresh air to get into your brooding pen. One of the ways you can do is to leave maybe the last 1 foot on top of a tarpaulin. It's true you lose some heat, but again, oxygen is essential to the lives of the birds. So it may cost you a little bit more in heating, but at least the fact that the birds can get fresh air is also helpful because they're living things. They need oxygen. And so if you cover up your whole house and there's no way to get any fresh air in, your birds will end up taking in a lot of carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. That's not good for them. So especially even during the day, if the weather permits, you have to open from day one. Open the tarpaulin and get some fresh air into your pen. One of the tools you have to get to help you with heating and ventilation is your temperature gauge. It's about 4,500 or 5,000 now in any of these online shops. You must get it. The cost is not that much, but it's important for you to have it so you can regulate your heating and temperature. It also helps you know what the humidity is so you can make some adjustments to temperature. The higher the humidity, the lower the temperature. And so getting it is a no-brainer. You must get a temperature gauge. Don't come in and determine temperature based on how you feel. However, when you get the temperature gauge, you use it as a guide. The first thing you do when you come in is to watch the behavior of your birds. What are they doing? If you have birds usually the rule is if you have 1/3 of your birds sleeping or lying down, 1/3 are eating, 1/3 running up and down, and they're spread evenly across or fairly evenly across the pen, then conditions are perfect. If you come into your pen and you notice that all the birds are doing the same thing, something is wrong. If they're all lying down, they're either too cold or too hot. If they're lying down and crumbled together, it means they're very cold. If they're lying down and spread apart and they're all doing this, it means they're too hot. So the behavior of your birds will be the first indication that they are okay or they're not okay. But note this rule. Anytime you go into your pen and all of them are doing the same thing, there's a problem. Don't leave until you solve that problem. As I said earlier, most farmers give too much heat. I've seen people put on heat in the hot weather at 2 p.m. because somebody told them to give heat. And if you come into that condition, you notice that the birds are not eating. Now, when the temperature is too hot or you give too much heat, the first thing that will happen to your birds is they're going to perspire. They perspire more than they should. That will lead in brownish poo, that will lead to dehydration, and that will lead to mortality. If you don't give enough heat, that's also good. They don't eat much because they're trying to conserve energy. The energy will turn to feathers and they're going to have mortalities. So too hot or too cold is a problem. You must maintain temperature at a certain range. One of the keys to obtaining a great 7-day weight and 3 kg in 6 weeks is maintaining proper heating and ventilation, because when the heating and ventilation is appropriate, they'll be eating, they'll be comfortable, they'll be happy. The other thing is, of course, adequate feeders, adequate drinkers, good feed, good quality, good clean water. And I suggest in several times, if you hear me talk, you always know I preach that you should give them, boil their water in the first 21 days so that you eliminate any form of bacteria or impurities in the water. If you do this in 6 weeks, there's a very good chance you will have 3 kg. But the first indication that the birds will do well is that you have 200 grams or more on the 7 days. So if you want to maintain a chance of having 3 kg in 6 weeks, try and get 200 grams of weight in 7 days. The other thing I will tell you is that most of the mortalities you have in your first or second week is either due to bacterial infection or excessive heat or cold. These are the 2 main reasons you couldn't have a lot of mortality in the first 2 weeks. If you can avoid bacterial infections, or you treat bacterial infections, or prevent bacterial infections, and you maintain good heating and ventilation, chances that you have mortality in the first 2 weeks very rare. I always get this question about what you should do or when you should stop giving them heat. There's no fast and hard rules about when you stop giving heat. As you're going to find out later in this video, we're going to talk about temperature ranges. What you have to do is to try and maintain that range. If your birds are comfortable in that range, then that's all you do. So you watch the temperature be your guide, the weather be your guide. There are times like if it's in December time, you give heat until 4 weeks. There are times of the year where you don't even give heat after the 2nd or 3rd day. So what you do is guided by the weather and the temperature inside your pen. So don't worry about the days. Some people say after 2 weeks don't give heat. No, you just follow the weather. And as I said earlier, you watch the behavior of your birds. If the birds are comfortable and they don't require any heat, don't give any heat. If you start noticing that the range on your temperature gauge is less than the range for temperature for the age of your birds, then you can give heat. Now, first week, you must check your heating every 2 hours, especially the first 3 days. It's just like having a new baby. I don't know anybody who has a new baby who goes to bed for 8 hours. You have to keep checking because it's a new baby, and so things change. The temperature has to remain, you have to maintain good temperature throughout that week. So most of their suffering and most of the pain and suffering in raising broilers is in the first 1 week. Especially between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. because that's when the temperature takes a nosedive. If you notice in broilers, most of your mortalities in the first week comes that time of the day, between 3 and 5 a.m. So it's important for you at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock to be up and checking on temperature, making sure you have adequate heat. Because whatever the temperature is at 12 midnight, it's going to fall between 3 and 5. So that's one thing you have to do, is to watch out for the weather between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. If you have 500 broilers, if you're raising 500 broilers or more, I think I'll suggest you get a gas brooder with regulator. That way you can maintain a certain temperature throughout the night. However, I found that gas brooders may have difficulties sometimes of the year. There's nothing that beats charcoal. Is the most efficient way to give heating. So even if you're using a gas brooder, there are times that it's so cold for even the gas brooder to function. You may need to back it up with a charcoal pot. Now, these are the temperatures for your beds from week 1 to week 6. Now, we are going to assume that humidity is 50%, because ideally you want humidity for your beds to be between 50% and 70%. Right now, if it's in December, for instance, or January, humidity is usually very low, maybe in the 20s or 30s. So you have to be careful at those times, because low humidity may result in dehydration to your beds. But for week 1, you want to maintain temperature of between 31 degrees to 35 degrees centigrade. Now, depending, you have to watch it. Some beds are more comfortable at the lower end range. For instance, most people who are in Nigeria raising Ross 308, like Agri-10, they don't like heat as much. So there's a little variation whether if you're raising CHI or lamb versus raising Agri-10. If you're raising Agri-10, they don't like as much heat. In fact, you may have a lot of mortalities if you have temperature in the higher end. So you have to watch out for that. If I was raising Agri-10, for instance, I want my temperature between 30 and 31 if humidity is 50%. Now, other beds, I could go to 33 or 35. And so whatever I'm going to say about the heat ranges for the beds or temperature ranges for the beds, subtract about 2 or 3 degrees for Agri-10. Heat stress is 40 degrees and above. So, we're talking about heat stress for the beds. If you have first week and have temperature above 40 degrees centigrade, then you have to know that you're having heat stress. You have to get out your maneuvers for dealing with heat stress management. But until it gets to 40, thereabout, for first week, your beds are comfortable. Now, as you notice, as you go further, as they age, the temperature for heat stress gets lower and lower. Second week, you have temperature range of 27 to 30 degrees centigrade. So if you have 37 degrees, you're having signs of heat stress. So at that point, you do all the things that we'll talk about when we talk about heat stress management. And there's a video coming out dealing with heat stress management. And for your information, for your own good, subscribe so when these videos come down, you'll be the first to get them. The third week, you want to maintain temperature of 25 to 27 degrees centigrade. Again, when temperature is 35 degrees centigrade or above, you're having heat stress. In the fourth week, you want to maintain temperature of 21 to 24 degrees centigrade. If you have 34 degrees centigrade or above, you're having signs of heat stress. And in the fifth week, you want to maintain a temperature of 21 degrees or thereabout. At this point, there'll be no heat required because our natural temperature will be in that range or above. If the temperature of 33 degrees centigrade and above, then you're having signs of heat stress. In the sixth week, you want to maintain a temperature of 19 degrees centigrade. About that time, if you have 32 degrees centigrade and above in temperature, you just know that there's chances your birds are going to die or suffer from heat stress or suffer as a result of heat stress. So you do what you need to do when you're dealing with heat stress. If you have gained anything from this video, please subscribe and share so other farmers can get benefit of this video. Thank you.